Hello again, Internet. Movie Ninja again. Yeah, it's been a while. What can I say? Ninja op rotation sucks and is fairly unpredictable from time to time. Anyways, since it's been a while, I figured I would comment on the last film that I did a trailer reaction for, and that is, of course, Spiderman Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home was actually a decent sequel. A lot of the humor I actually felt missed the mark in a number of ways. It seemed like they were really trying to break their back, trying to force jokes where jokes really weren't needed. It almost felt like a very strange National Lampoon's version of a Marvel film at times. Not throughout the entire thing. The entire thing was actually fairly consistent with, does Peter Parker want to maintain the Spider-Man role into his adulthood? Is he, he's figuring out himself. He's figuring out exactly where he's going to go in life. Does he want to pursue this? Especially since his idol and mentor, Iron Man, sacrificed himself to save the entire world as of their last encounter. So, he sees the potential ultimate sacrifice that actually comes with heroism. And moving on into his later young adulthood, he has to decide, is this something that I really want to dedicate myself to? Do I want to give myself some time, take a year off being a superhero, go to college, do the college thing, and then maybe continue a little bit elsewhere? Maintain and start a relationship with Mary Jane, something like that. Okay, is a lot to consider. And the film does balance that fairly well. The villain, I definitely felt, was an escalation compared to the Vulture, portrayed by Michael Keaton. The Vulture by Michael Keaton was a thief, a high-tech thief, and very impressive, but still, at the end of the day, he was a thief. Mysterio. This was, I wasn't entirely sure based on the trailer. It did seem that they did hide just enough. You didn't see what this hand was doing just enough to where Jake Gyllenhaal's portrayal of Mysterio was actually fairly effective. You, in the beginning, believe that maybe this was an ulterior version of Mysterio and maybe he did have some sort of tragic backstory. But that being said, we went from the primary villain being a thief to the primary villain being a con man. And I thought it was actually fairly effective, especially the way that he toyed with and manipulated Peter throughout the film. It was something that we really weren't expecting the power of a villain to be more psychological than physical. And the way that it turned out was actually fairly impressive. You had Peter tormented in the midst of this challenge that he had with this villain. This is most of the time Spider-Man, he does use his wits. He does use his intelligence, his intellect to overcome a majority of the villains most of the time. His core rogues gallery being the Sinister Six. But with regards to this, he really couldn't figure out exactly what angle the villain was trying to work him at. And because of that, it was a lot more difficult, With the Vulture, he's a thief and he's a liar. I gotta take him down. I gotta, bring down his operation. With Jake Gyllenhaal, this was someone who tried to convince him that he was not only on his side and was willing to be an ulterior mentor, the way that Tony Stark was to him. But this was someone that said, you know what, kid, you can live your life. I'm going to step in, I'll step up, so that you don't have to dedicate the rest of your life to this particular crusade. And in a way, we kind of felt bad as an audience that, we felt bad because we were betrayed. We were betrayed, in the way that Peter was lied to, and we were betrayed in that, okay, there's no getting out of this. You have to handle this situation. And yes, okay, one of the faults of the film was that they tried to make up multiple excuses for why aren't there any heroes? Well, Thor's in outer space, and the other Avengers are busy doing other Avenger-related things. And it really just felt like a laundry list of excuses why he has absolutely no backup. And I understand S.H.I.E.L.D. is being reconstructed from the ground up ever since the collapse of it all in Captain America Winter Soldier. But that being said, it still felt like, okay, seriously, you can't call in anyone to help Peter at the end of all this? No, it just doesn't really make sense. But that being said, so this was the challenge. He has to approach a new type of villain, one that is more keenly sinister. One that actually does have a very polished strategy to actually take him off balance. And, okay, so I can't approach this villain the way I approached my last villain. So that means, gotta use what I have up here. Something that Spider-Man is very well known for, is being not just a child prodigy, but overall a genius. Very much in the likeness of Tony Stark, or Hank Pym, or even, dare say, Bruce Banner. So, with regards to that, we have a situation in which, okay, I can't use my special abilities just get rid of the bad guy in the traditional sense of being a superhero, so I have to use my intelligence. And I did, there was a bigger payoff, it felt like. He definitely has to go on his own, and Peter has to overcome an incredible, daunting challenge. I mean, essentially, there's an entire military infrastructure that was built into a pair of sunglasses, which Peter gave up because he really just wanted to enjoy his summer vacation. Yeah, definitely weren't seeing the genius part of his character in that decision. But nonetheless, okay, when he has to deal with the situation as is, he actually dealt with it fairly well. Relying both on his intellect and his instincts, which you can definitely see, I'm just going to call it the spider sense. I know that they've had an ongoing joke that was vaguely double entendre. I'm not going to use the phrasing that they used in the film for that. Anyways, because he is actually a very intellectual character, you could tell that he was very uncomfortable depending on his spider sense, depending on instincts versus intellect. And yet, at the very end of the film, that's essentially what saves him. I also definitely appreciated the twist. There was a really strong twist, which I'm actually not going to spoil for anyone who has yet to see the film, or you're kind of on the edge. It's I've had enough of superhero films for a while. I will say this. It is a strong enough cliffhanger. Not so much a twist. Cliffhanger and a twist. Yeah, no, I can keep that. Cliffhanger and a twist to where, coming into the next film, we have a lot to look forward to, especially because we're not entirely sure. Okay, Peter has accepted the challenges that lie ahead for a professional superhero career. He has accepted those challenges. He is bracing himself for a bright future as an Avenger and a superhero, and maybe even a role model for, people. And yeah, there's a very big bomb drop at the very end of the film. Also, a rather nice cameo. But we don't know exactly where the next film will go. Overall, it was decent. I would say that as far as Spider-Man sequels go, I would definitely say still 1 to 2. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man to Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the sequel, the second one, that is still very outstanding because of just Doc Ock. I don't know how they would ever approach that character ever again. I'm pretty sure they probably will, because they're probably going to bring in the characters of the Sinister Six. But anywho, okay, that's a totally different thing. Now, but still, all the same, my feelings in total are that this was still a fairly successful film. A little clumsy, a little fumbling here and there, but I mean, to be a decent sequel is in itself an achievement. Because usually, it's a rather cliche thing to say, but the sequel doesn't live up to the very first film. Yeah, that's not a surprise to anybody. And so, being that if it's just at its worst mediocre, at its best, it's a decent effort, and if it's its worst, it's just a little mediocre, that's a pretty good thing, and a strong indicator for a very strong franchise boost. We still don't know exactly where the film is headed into this next phase, and when I say film, I mean the cliffhanger storyline. We don't really know exactly where it is, but it still made its bank and then some, and so I'm sure Disney will not let anything happen to this particular character in this particular franchise within the MCU. Because corporations always make good decisions. Yes, I'm aware of what just came out. My previous statement still holds. I have no idea where they're going with this now, especially since it's kind of a drift, this particular character in this particular storyline. There's no way that they're going to abandon it. It's Spider-Man. It's one of the most popular characters in the entire Marvel canon, and still Tom Holland does do a decent job in the role. So, okay, things are on shaky ground right now. Disney, Marvel, whatever, use this as an opportunity to breathe, take a couple steps back, and say, okay, you know what? Maybe we're not going to put out another Spider-Man film in the next year. Like, you don't even have to worry about like your actor changing that much. Tom Holland is a young guy, you know, and we don't have to worry about him going through any like weird, drastic adolescent changes or anything like that. He's still pretty much full grown at this point. So, okay, just take some time, breathe, make a strong story. Ultimately, that's what fans want. Yes, there's a lot of different back and forth as to exactly what makes a successful superhero film, especially now that exhaustion is kind of settling in. So, use this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity to just maybe take a step back, reassess the situation, maybe use this time to make a really polished story. There's so many characters within Spider-Man canon and so many villains that he could face. If anyone was interested in the opinions of a humble ninja who watches movies for fun, don't fill the next film with supervillains. Don't, like, because that is the crux of Spider-Man 3 and Tobey Maguire, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield. Don't saturate the films with these villains. It doesn't do you any good. You're just cutting yourself off at the legs by removing the possibilities of fighting a nemesis per film. So, I mean, just, yeah, I know that no Disney suit is probably going to, like, watch this, but at the same time, just please bear that in mind. You don't have to, for your next big blockbuster starring Spider-Man, you don't have to fill it up with every single possible villain that he has ever faced. Please don't do that. Pick a villain and then try to make a decent story, because even though, like I said, this film had its shortcomings and I don't think it was as strong as the first film, it's still a really good Spider-Man film in the various collections of Spider-Man. It is still actually more than serviceable. It's pretty good. So, bearing that in mind, Disney, just take a couple breaths, reassess the situation, and then move on. So, that being said, I also want to make a special declaration that I very much approve of the Night Monkey costume. Because something that I firmly believe, and then eventually I will make a little bit clearer in my assessment, because this is also to bring ninja contribution awareness, you know, to use sort of like a newer term in the industry that I hope will break through, is that the best films always have ninjas. And Spider-Man, aka Night Monkey, I consider you an honorary ninja for Spider-Man Far From Home. Alright, till next time, laters.